Hey everyone, welcome back. Can you feel it? You're making real progress on this incredible journey toward U.S. citizenship. Every question you master brings you one step closer to that proud moment when you raise your right hand and become an American citizen. The finish line is clearly on the horizon, and it's exciting. Today, we're diving into questions 11 through 20 from the current 128-question USCIS Civics test, 2025 version. In your naturalization interview, the officer will ask up to 20 questions, and you only need to answer 12 correctly to pass. We're not just memorizing answers here. We're going deep with clear explanations so you truly understand the heart and soul of American democracy. Get comfortable, get excited, and let's do this. We'll cover the questions with full explanations first, then test your knowledge with a fast-paced pop quiz in the second half. Ready? Let's jump in. Let's talk about the words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This famous phrase has a very special importance in declaring America's core values. These words appear in the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence is a real, physical historical document, an actual handwritten paper signed in 1776 that is still preserved and displayed in the National Archives in Washington, D.C. It was written mainly by Thomas Jefferson and approved by the Continental Congress on July 4, 1776. In this document, the American colonies officially announced that they were separating from Great Britain and becoming a new, independent nation. The most famous part explains that all people are created equal and are born with certain unalienable rights, rights that no king or government can take away. The three rights specifically mentioned, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, represent the American ideal. Life means the right to live safely and be protected. Liberty means the freedom to speak, act, and live as you choose within the law. The pursuit of happiness means you have the right to work hard and try to build a better life for yourself and your family. The document also states that the main purpose of any government is to protect these rights. This powerful idea became the moral foundation of the United States. So, if you are asked the question, the words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are in what founding document? You can now confidently answer, Declaration of Independence. Let's talk about the economic system of the United States. Capitalism, also known as the free market economy, can be defined as a system where individuals and businesses, not the government, own most of the property, factories, stores, and resources. People have the freedom to start their own companies, decide what products or services to create, set their own prices based on what customers are willing to pay, and keep the profits they earn. Healthy competition between businesses encourages innovation, better quality products, and reasonable prices. This system gives people the opportunity to work where they want and build better lives for themselves. While the United States does have some government regulations to protect workers, consumers, and the environment, the foundation of the economy remains capitalism and the free market. This economic freedom has helped the United States become one of the most prosperous and innovative countries in the world. So, if you are asked the question, what is the economic system of the United States? You can now confidently answer, capitalism or free market economy. Let's talk about one of the most important principles in American government, the rule of law. The rule of law means that everyone must follow the law, and no one is above the law. This principle is very different from many other countries, where powerful people or rulers can do whatever they want. In the United States, the law applies equally to every single person, whether you are an ordinary citizen, a wealthy business owner, a member of Congress, a judge, or even the president. If anyone breaks the law, they can be held accountable. This creates fairness, prevents corruption and tyranny, and builds a stable, predictable society where people can trust the system. The rule of law protects individual rights and ensures that the government itself must also obey the Constitution and the laws it creates. So, if you are asked the question, what is the rule of law? You can now confidently answer, Everyone must follow the law. No one is above the law. Leaders must obey the law, or government must obey the law. Let's talk about the many important documents that helped shape and inspire the U.S. Constitution. One of the most influential was the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence is a real, physical, historical document, an actual handwritten paper that still exists today and is on public display in the National Archives in Washington, D.C. It was written primarily by Thomas Jefferson in 1776 and officially approved by the Continental Congress on July 4th of that year. In simple terms, it announced to the world that the 13 American colonies were breaking away from Great Britain and becoming an independent nation. What makes this document so powerful and important is that it clearly listed the basic rights that every person should have, simply because they are human. These are called unalienable rights. And the most famous line says that all people are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It also explained why governments exist, not to give people rights, but to protect the rights people already have, and that if a government fails to protect those rights, the people have the right to change it. This document gave the new country its moral foundation and inspired people everywhere who wanted freedom. The founders did not stop there. They also looked at several other important documents and ideas to help them design a strong and fair constitution. The Articles of Confederation was America's very first attempt at a national government after independence, but it proved too weak because it gave almost no power to the central government. The Federalist Papers were a series of 85 essays written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay to explain why the new Constitution was necessary and how it would work. The Iroquois Great Law of Peace was an agreement among Native American nations that showed how different groups could unite under one system while still respecting each other, an idea that influenced the founders' thinking about federalism. The Mayflower Compact was a short agreement signed by the Pilgrims in 1620 that showed people could create their own government by mutual consent, an early example of self-rule. Finally, the Virginia Declaration of Rights, written in 1776 by George Mason, listed specific individual rights and liberties that later became the foundation for the Bill of Rights in the Constitution. By studying all of these documents together, the founders were able to combine the best ideas from history into a constitution that has lasted more than 230 years. So, if you are asked the question, many documents influence the U.S. Constitution. Name one. You can now confidently answer. Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, Federalist Papers, Iroquois Great Law of Peace, Mayflower Compact, or Virginia Declaration of Rights. Let's talk about why the United States has 3 branches of government instead of giving all the power to one person or one group. The founders created 3 branches of government so that no single part could become too powerful. This idea is known as separation of powers, with a system of checks and balances. After declaring independence from Great Britain, the founders were very worried about tyranny, that is, a situation where one leader, like a king, could control everything and take away people's rights. They had just fought a war to escape exactly that kind of rule. So they deliberately divided the federal government into 3 completely separate branches, each with its own job and its own powers. The first branch is the legislative branch, Congress, which makes the laws. The second is the executive branch, led by the president, which carries out and enforces the laws. The third is the judicial branch, the courts, which interprets the laws and decides if they are fair according to the Constitution. But simply dividing the power was not enough. The founders also created checks and balances, a clever system where each branch has ways to limit or check the power of the other 2. For example, Congress can pass a law, but the president can veto, reject it. However, Congress can override that veto if enough members vote to do so. The Supreme Court can declare a law unconstitutional and stop it from being used. The president appoints judges, but the Senate must approve them. This constant balance keeps any one branch from becoming too strong and protects the freedom of the people. It is one of the most important inventions in the American system of government and helps explain why the United States has remained a democracy for over 230 years. So, if you are asked the question, there are 3 branches of government. Why? You can now confidently answer. So one part does not become too powerful, separation of powers, or checks and balances.
They said my EB1 needed more categories. I can't even dock. What am I gonna do?
I need to find the right lawyer that can navigate me through this crisis. I need my EB1 so my new life can begin. These lawyers are amazing. They are walking me through every questions, making sure I don't miss a thing.
Thanks to the law offices of Chris M. Ingram, I'm cleared to land. But my career is gonna take off.
Houston. He got his visa.
Need help with your visa? Book your free consultation now at www.breakthroughUSA.com and let us take care of you.
Let's talk about the 3 branches of government and what each one actually does. The 3 branches of government are the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. This division is at the very heart of how the U.S. government works. Each branch has its own specific responsibilities, and together, they make sure the country runs smoothly while preventing any one group from having too much power. Here is what each branch does in simple terms. The legislative branch, which is the U.S. Congress, made up of the Senate and the House of Representatives, is responsible for making new laws. They discuss ideas, debate them, and vote on bills that can become laws for the whole country. The executive branch, led by the President, is responsible for carrying out and enforcing the laws. This includes running the daily operations of the government, managing federal agencies, commanding the military, and making sure laws are actually followed across all 50 states. The judicial branch, which consists of the Supreme Court and other federal courts, is responsible for interpreting the laws. When there is a disagreement about what a law means or whether it follows the Constitution, the courts step in and make a final decision. A helpful way to remember this is to think of the government like a sports league. The legislative branch writes the rule book, the laws, the executive branch runs the games and makes sure everyone follows the rules, and the judicial branch acts as the referees who interpret the rules and settle disputes. This clear separation helps the entire system stay balanced and fair. So, if you are asked the question, name the 3 branches of government, you can now confidently answer legislative, executive, and judicial, or Congress, President, and the courts. Let's talk about the President's role in the U.S. government. The President of the United States is in charge of the executive branch. The executive branch is responsible for carrying out and enforcing the laws that Congress passes. As head of this branch, the President is often called the Chief Executive. This means the President oversees the many departments and agencies of the federal government, such as the Department of Defense, the Department of Education, and many others. The President also serves as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and represents the United States when meeting with leaders of other countries. Because of the system of checks and balances, the President cannot make laws by himself or herself. They must work together with Congress and the courts. This keeps the power of the presidency from becoming too strong. So, if you are asked the question, the President of the United States is in charge of which branch of government, you can now confidently answer executive branch. Let's talk about which part of the federal government has the authority to write and create new laws. The part of the federal government that writes laws is the U.S. Congress, also known as the legislative branch. Congress is the only branch that can introduce, debate, and pass bills. When a member of Congress has an idea for a new law, they write it as a bill. The bill must be discussed, changed if needed, and then voted on and approved by both the House of Representatives and the Senate. Only after both houses agree can the bill go to the President to be signed into law. This process ensures that laws are carefully considered and represent the will of the people through their elected representatives. So, if you are asked the question, What part of the federal government writes laws? You can now confidently answer U.S. Congress or legislative branch. Let's talk about the structure of the U.S. Congress. The two parts of the U.S. Congress are the Senate and the House of Representatives. When the Constitution was being written in 1787, the founders faced a big problem: how to give every state a fair voice in the new government. They solved this by creating a bicameral legislature. The word bicameral simply means two chambers. A chamber is like a separate meeting hall or room where a group of lawmakers gathers to do their work. So Congress has two completely separate chambers, or houses, that must work together. This two-chamber design is called the Great Compromise. Large states wanted more power because they had more people, while small states wanted every state to be treated equally. The solution was to create the Senate, the smaller chamber. Every state, no matter how big or small, gets exactly 2 senators. This gives every state equal power. The House of Representatives, the larger chamber. The number of representatives each state gets is based on its population. Bigger states have more representatives. For any idea to become an actual law, it must be approved by both chambers. This means the Senate protects the interests of the states as equal partners, while the House makes sure the will of the people, based on population, is also heard. The Constitution deliberately built this balance so that no single group could dominate the lawmaking process. So, if you are asked the question, what are the two parts of the U.S. Congress? You can now confidently answer Senate and House of Representatives. Let's talk about some of the important powers given specifically to the U.S. Congress. One key power of the U.S. Congress is that it writes laws. Congress has many other significant powers as well. It controls the federal budget, often called the power of the purse, meaning only Congress can decide how the government spends money. It alone can officially declare war. It can regulate commerce between the states and with foreign countries, and it can investigate the executive branch when needed. These powers ensure that the most important decisions for the nation are made by a large group of elected representatives rather than by one person. So, if you are asked the question, name one power of the U.S. Congress, you can now confidently answer writes laws, declares war, makes the federal budget, or any other power listed in the Constitution. Understanding the why behind these concepts is the best way to remember them long after the test. In the real interview, you'll need to answer 12 out of 20 questions correctly. Practicing both the answers and the explanations will give you confidence and speed. Now let's move to the pop quiz. Rapid fire style with no explanations. 11. The words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are in what founding document? The correct answer is Declaration of Independence. 12. What is the economic system of the United States? The correct answer is capitalism or free market economy. 13. What is the rule of law? The correct answer is everyone must follow the law, no one is above the law, leaders must obey the law, or government must obey the law. 14. Many documents influence the U.S. Constitution. Name one. The correct answer is Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, Federalist Papers, Iroquois Great Law of Peace, Mayflower Compact, or Virginia Declaration of Rights. 15. There are 3 branches of government. Why? The correct answer is so one part does not become too powerful. Separation of powers, or checks and balances.
16. Name the 3 branches of government. The correct answer is legislative, executive, and judicial, or Congress, President, and the courts. 17. The President of the United States is in charge of which branch of government? The correct answer is executive branch. 18. What part of the federal government writes laws? The correct answer is US Congress or legislative branch. 19. What are the 2 parts of the US Congress? The correct answer is Senate and House of Representatives. 20. Name one power of the US Congress. The correct answers are writes laws, declares war, makes the federal budget, or any other power listed in the Constitution. We're moving through all 128 questions in this series to find out what it really means to be a citizen.
Are you ready to move from applicant to citizen? Your journey starts right now. Check the next video on the series and let's get those 12 correct answers locked in.